Here's a way that you can make linear slides with Creo. I'm using very simple parts, and have to bear with me because my recording software slows down my Creo program. What it's going to do is make two parts slide against each other, and I even have it made so if I try to drag it down farther, it's not going to go too far. And you can enable limits on both sides. So what I'll do is start with a new assembly, because probably, even if you already have the base of your robot made, be sure to make your linear slides a sub-assembly of your main robot. Otherwise, your whole assembly is just going to be a big cluster of madness. So you're assembling first the parent linear slide part, and then make sure that you make up, up, and down, down. So you're probably going to do more than just default constraint on that. And then assemble the next part. So part 1 again is mine. It might be a different part for you. Here, I'm going to slide these parts away from each other using Shift and drag. Excuse me, Control Alt and drag. Why is this happening? Oh, close enough. I got the parts to drag away from each other. So we are going to change user defined up here to a planar. We're going to use two planars to get these together. The first planar I'm going to do is going to be the sides that are touching each other. So this side is going to touch that side. And if I rotate around, I can see that they are not facing the direction I want. So I'll switch it around. And then we'll go into Placement tab, and we'll actually add a new set. So click on New Set. It's also going to be planar, and this planar is going to be what keeps your rotation in line. So these are I'm going to use the sides of mine. Now let's say you have some tolerance in there, which is good. Instead of coincident, just say distant, and then you can put in your distance, which would be the tolerance between those two parts. We're going to go back up to connection 1, and we're going to do the two translation axes. Excuse me, we'll only do one translation axis. So the first translation, the only translation axis, is going to be your up and down movement. That's the only thing left you have to constrain since you're using two planar connections. So we will use two surfaces. They need to be parallel. I recommend using either the top or the bottom of your part if that works for you. And we will move these around. This didn't work for me last time either. Here, what I'm going to do is actually, this worked better for me last time when I used, hold with me, edit definition. I'm going to go back into here, say placement. We're going to go into axis 2. I'm going to pick the top and the top. We're good. Okay, now we're good. So for whatever reason, use axis 2. That must be the one that likes moving up and down. You can set the current position to 0, and that will make your life easier in just a minute. That's going to line up the two parts. Now, if you selected two parts that are going to be at 0 at one of the limits, awesome. If that's their default position, set that to your regeneration value, and then say enable regeneration value. This way, when you open up your robot or when you regenerate your robot, if you dragged everything all which ways, it will bring it back to a state where it looks pretty again. We'll make a minimum limit of 0, and then you can make a maximum limit. I think my dimensions are huge on here, so I'll say 500, and then I will say OK. I'll zoom out a little bit, use Control and Alt, and try dragging this piece up. It goes up, and then it stops at my limit of 500, and then I'll try dragging it back down, and it goes down and stops at a limit of 0. You can make those limits whatever you want. You can add distance between these two parts just by changing it from coincident to distance, and that's about the gist of it. So here, planar. If you want to add a little buffer zone between there, if you have some tolerance, just change this distance and then put in your offset value. Cool. So that is how you can make some linear slides using the Creo software.